All right, everybody. Happy Thursday, November 12th. It's your first hurricane day. So remember that this is what we would have done on Monday, November 16th, but because of the schedule switcheroo, we have to just adjust. So this is going to be meiosis. Now, there's going to be a lot of processes that are going on in meiosis that are not in mitosis. Quite frankly, mitosis is easy. You're just making two clones of the original parent cell. But meiosis is a bit different. So if you remember in mitosis, you begin with a diploid cell. And that diploid cell is going to go through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis to form two diploid daughter cells. The daughter cells are identical to the parent cell. This is meant for growth. This is meant for repair. This is meant for replacement. In meiosis, it is different. You begin with a parent cell that is diploid, just like mitosis, but after that, there's really no other commonhood when it comes to mitosis and meiosis. That diploid cell is going to go through one cellular division and form two haploid cells. And then each haploid cell here is going to go through division once more and form four unique, unidentical daughter cells. And these daughter cells are meant for gametes, typically sperm and egg. Because they are haploid, they're going to be half the chromosome number. So to revisit a few terms that we did the other day, I want to be sure that you are fully clear on what meiosis actually means. Meiosis is a form of cell division in which a diploid parent cell produces four haploid, and that's in daughter cells. Now, typically when it comes to organisms like us, animals, this is gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the creation, that's the genesis part, of gametes, which are sex cells. So remember what diploid means. Remember, we did this just the other day. It's very important you understand diploid versus haploid. Diploid is the total number of chromosomes in a cell. For humans, a diploid cell is going to be 46. And haploid you have half the total number of chromosomes in a cell. And for humans, this would be n equals 23. Okay? Now, again, this is for gametes. Gametogenesis is just a reproductive cell or a sex cell. That would be sperm and egg. Now, remember that in sexual reproduction, which is how humans reproduce, how all animals reproduce, all reptiles, all birds, all vertebrates, that includes fish, reptiles, amphibians, and most invertebrates too. Crustaceans, which are crabs, lobsters, shrimp, insects, ants, grasshoppers, roaches, beetles, arachnids, scorpions, spiders, and then you have octopi. You've got the majority of life on Earth reproduces sexually. I should say the majority of species. So when you have sexual reproduction, you have a sperm, which is haploid, and an egg, which is haploid, fuse to form remember what the word is? A zygote. The zygote is diploid. This is known as sexual fertilization. You can call it conception as well. So just on this one topic, I want to go over all these terms that you definitely need to know. You have meiosis, diploid, haploid, sexual reproduction, a zygote, sexual fertilization, and you can also throw conception in there. There's a lot of terms that are involved in genetics, and this is going to be the bridge from cell cycle to genetics. Now we get into something different that is not in mitosis, but I think it would be nice to compare mitosis and meiosis to kind of give you a starting point, okay? So in mitosis, all the DNA replicates, okay? So hypothetically, let's do that fruit fly that we did a few days ago, because fruit flies only have 4 chromosomes. This is going to make this very easy. So let's say that we have a fruit fly cell, and in that fruit fly cell we have chromosome 1, 2, 3, and 4, all right? 4 chromosomes. Well, after S phase of interphase, everything is going to double. And so we're going to have 1 sister chromatid, 2 sister chromatids, 3 sister chromatids, and 4 sister chromatids. And then we have, if I were to go to metaphase, you know, I'm really jumping around here, guys. You all know what the real order of things is. G1, S, G2. Then you have M phase, which is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. So I'm just doing a very gross overview of everything that's going on. So in metaphase, they all line up on that metaphase plate. You all know that. In anaphase, they get pulled apart by the spindle fiber. So how about in anaphase or in metaphase, I draw that. There's the spindle fiber. And then the cell is starting to stretch out a little bit, and the spindle fiber is pulling everything apart. And then you go to telophase. You're starting to form a cleavage furrow. A nucleus is beginning to form in each soon-to-be daughter cell, and the DNA has decondensed into chromatin. All right, that's telophase, and then finally you have cytokinesis. You have 2 daughter cells. There's a nuclei, and in the daughter cells, they each have an original copy of the DNA, just like that original parent cell. So if you go back, you can see that the parent cell is just like the daughter cells, and the daughter cells are just like each other. So here we have 2 daughter cells. That's mitosis. Now, let's get into meiosis. Okay, now what you all need to realize is that when there is sexual reproduction, the chromosomes that are with the father and the chromosomes that are with the mother pair up. We call these paternal chromosomes. Those are going to be the ones for father. And maternal chromosomes, that's going to be from mother. These are terms that you'll need to know just for things like an FRQ. We don't say mom and dad. You can say mother and father. Don't say mom and dad on an FRQ. Don't say mom and dad in class. I'm going to correct you. You can say paternal parent or maternal parent. You have to really go by the book. I know it sounds dorky. No one talks like that. But when we get to science, you really do need to speak that way. So paternal and maternal, not mommy and daddy, not mom and dad. And I don't want you to say kid either. I want you to say offspring or son or daughter, or you can say male or female offspring, but don't ever let me hear you say kid. Okay, don't say kids. I might say it accidentally and I'll stop myself. And if I don't stop myself, I want you to stop me. Don't say kid in class or on an FRQ. Say offspring. That's going to be important. So a maternal chromosome is going to be from the mother. And what they do, maternal chromosome or paternal chromosomes and maternal chromosomes assemble into pairs. Now, just for the sake of you really getting this, I'm going to do this because I love you guys and I want you to be able to get this, okay? So let's say for a human, this is going to be a little time consuming. Let's say for a human that you inherit 23 chromosomes from dad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay. And we'll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So those are all the chromosomes that we inherit from dad. Now, here are all the chromosomes that we inherit from mom. And here's what I want you to understand. The chromosomes that dad has, they all have a certain size. They all have certain banding patterns. And they all have certain traits. So let's just pretend, for the sake of pretending and understanding, that chromosome 1 from your father has the genes to give you your eye color. Well, when you inherit those chromosomes from mom, one second, guys, I need to plug in my laptop so it doesn't die on me. So just give me just a few seconds here and we'll get right back where I was. Hold that thought. I don't want my computer to die. 1 second. Okay, crisis averted. All right, as I was saying, pretend that chromosome 1 has the genes to give you your eye color, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little marker right here. That little marker means eye color, okay? That's the gene for eye color. When mom's sperm or mom's egg is fertilized by dad's sperm, it is going to have the same trait. So on that chromosome, you're also going to have the trait for eye color. So we have chromosome 1 from dad pairs up to chromosome 1 from mom. Chromosome 2 from dad pairs up to chromosome 2 from mom. And this whole thing just continues. 3 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. The chromosomes that we inherit from our parents are common. Chromosome 1 from dad is like chromosome 1 from mom. Chromosome 18 from dad will match up with chromosome 18 from mom. And they do this to form the pairs. Chromosome 3 from dad pairs up with chromosome 3 from mom. Now this has a name. These are called homologous pairs, or you can just call them homologs. Okay? You know the prefix homo means the same. Hetero means other or different. When we get into more genetics, if you remember from freshman bio, homozygous, heterozygous. Do you remember that? Like this genotype is homozygous because they're the same. This is heterozygous because they're different. So I hope that rings the bell. Homo means the same. So we would say that chromosome 1 from dad and chromosome 1 from mom are called a homologous pair. Chromosome 13 from mom and chromosome 13 from dad is a homologous pair. They all pair up because they have similar traits, they have similar size, they have similar banding patterns. So in a homologous pair, you have chromosomes inherited from each parent that have the same size, banding patterns, and traits. You know, just look at chromosome pair number 23. This is your sex pair. If you're a female, you're XX. If you're a male, you're XY. The sex chromosome you get from mom is going to be the sex chromosome you get from dad. So just for example, we all know that women have 2 X chromosomes. And so no matter what, you inherit an X chromosome from your mother. So that's a given. Your father determines your gender. And so if you inherit an X chromosome from your dad, you're going to be a girl. If you inherit a Y chromosome from your dad, you're going to be a boy. And so those sex chromosomes match up. And those are chromosomes 23 when it comes to us humans. Chromosome 23 from mom, which is an X always, is going to pair up with chromosome 23 from dad, which could be X, which he inherited from his mother, or it could be Y, which he inherited from his father. So the sex chromosomes match up and the rest of the chromosomes match up too. That's going to be a really important point. And I also want to stress that this is one of those terms I've told you before in class that some students just don't remember. They just don't get it. Now, when I say genes or traits, I want to expand on that word. These are called alleles. And you're definitely going to be hearing this in the coming weeks. And alleles are alternate forms of a gene or a trait. So it's pretty, and this might jog your memory. In humans, this is just an example, okay? In humans, brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes. Okay? So I can tell you my parents. Let's use my parents for example. My mom has blue eyes. My dad has green eyes. Now green is rarer than blue. So my mom is going to be, let's see, she's going to be homozygous recessive. And my dad, what I found out is that my dad has green eyes, but one of his parents had green eyes and one of his parents had blue eyes. And we're going to get into whole intricacy of the Mendelian genetics later. I'm not going to really get into it. But he is also going to be homozygous recessive, but his trait's going to be even more recessive than my mom. And so what if I told you that this means blue and this means green? Okay? So no matter what, my mom has a little a and a little a. Those are called alleles. She has a copy of the blue-eyed gene from her parent, from her mom, and she has a copy of the blue-eyed gene from her dad. So no matter what, I inherited one of these. So let's say one of these makes me. I inherited that from my mom. And my dad has both recessive, like really recessive genes for green eyes. And so I inherited that from my dad. Well, according to the laws of genetics, we know that blue eyes is actually dominant to green eyes. If you have green eyes, that's really, really rare. I believe only 8% of the population is blue-eyed, and even like less than that, like 2% is green-eyed. So if you're green, you're really rare. Brown eyes is very common. Sorry, you're common. Well, I kind of like to phrase it to you guys like, what would win in a fight? A blue-eyed or a green-eyed? Well, blue eyes is going to win. And so me, I have blue eyes, but I'm a carrier for green eyes. So maybe if I have a child with a woman that has a recessive allele as well, maybe we might have a green-eyed kid. But I have blue and green. I express the blue, and we're going to get way more into that in the coming days and weeks. I'm not going to get all into it now, but I just wanted to show you that for hair color, that's a trait. Different forms of the trait would be brown hair, red hair, blonde hair, dirty blonde, strawberry blonde, black hair. Eyes, that's a trait. Eye color. There are different forms of that trait. Blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, hazel eyes. Those are called alleles, the different forms of the trait. Okay? Now, let's talk about this homologous pair phenomenon even more. This is going to help us with our Mendelian or meiosis talk. So let's say this is chromosome 1 from dad, and this is chromosome 1 from mom. Chromosome 1, chromosome 1. This is a homologous pair. They're going to pair up, and they're going to be together in your nucleus. Well, after S phase, they're both going to double. So, in S phase of interphase, all chromosomes replicate to form sister chromatids. What we have here is we have sister chromatids of a paternal chromosome and here we have sister chromatids of maternal chromosome. And they will stay paired up, and they're going to do something that is seen in meiosis that is not happening in mitosis. So remember that. So these will stay in a pair. They're going to stay as a homologous pair because despite the fact they doubled, they still have common traits. Let's say that this chromosome from your father has your hair color. That means it's going to pair with a chromosome from your mother with hair color. They have the common traits. Now, let's get into stages of meiosis. Actually, overview of meiosis, excuse me. Meiosis involves 2 cell divisions. The parent cell is diploid. The parent cell is a somatic cell, which means it is diploid, called a germline cell. Germline cells are the somatic cells in our body. They're near your reproductive organs. They're the ones whose destiny is to become sperm or to become egg. Okay? Now, when I say there's two cell divisions, there's meiosis 1. The diploid parent cell divides into two haploid daughter cells. So this is where I'm going to use the fruit fly, okay? The fruit fly is going to make this really easy because fruit flies only have 4 chromosomes. I don't want to draw 46 like I did earlier. We're just going to do 4. So let's look at a fruit fly. Okay? Here's a fruit fly. And it has 2 chromosomes from its father. And it has 2 chromosomes from its mother. This is just going to be interphase. And let's say this is G1. So all the organelles are doubling. Well, now we're going to get into S phase. This is still interphase. And this is S. You all know that in S phase, the DNA doubles itself. So there's 2 copies of chromosome 1 from father, 2 copies of chromosome 1 from mother, 2 copies of chromosome 2 from father. Here's 2 copies of chromosome 1 from mother and 2 copies of chromosome 2 from mother. That's S phase. We're going to skip G2 just because there's nothing here that we need to concern ourselves about. And I should draw a nucleus just to make sure we're all in the clear. There is a nucleus there. And now let's get into prophase. And because this is meiosis 1, it's called prophase 1. In prophase 1, the nucleus is eroding and the chromosomes have formed sister chromatids. And also the centrioles are starting to move to opposite ends of the cell, the poles, to start to break apart the chromosomes. Now, here we go. This is something that's going to be unique to meiosis that you don't see in mitosis, okay? I want you to check this out. This is new. They are going to be lined up along the metaphase plate, but it is going to be synapse. It's going to be as homologous chromosomes. So this is metaphase 1. And I need to talk to you all about this one. This one's really important. Oop, metaphase 1, not metaphase 2. Okay, let's talk about this. Homologous chromosomes align along the metaphase plate. This is called synapsis. Synapsis is a verb. So I'm going to actually put that in parentheses. Synapsis is when you have the homologous chromosomes line up side by side, but along the metaphase plate. Now, what I want you to really look at is notice how they're side by side. This is metaphase 1 of meiosis. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. You see how it's different than metaphase of mitosis? In mitosis, they're lined up along the metaphase plate, but they're not side by side. They're just in a single file line. That's what the big differences is. And so in metaphase 1 of meiosis 1, they actually form a bivalent. And that's your other term here. This forms a bivalent. Bivalent is a noun. A bivalent is defined as two homologs or homologous chromosomes that stay in association. That means they just stay together during meiosis 1. So there's your other term, bivalent. Know the difference between synapsis and bivalent. When synapsis is they align along the metaphase plate. Bivalent is they form a bivalent where they are side by side in their homologs, but they're going to be in meiosis 1. Okay, and then in anaphase 1, they're going to be pulled apart to opposite sides. This is anaphase 1, and then in telophase 1, you're starting to form a nucleus. And in that nucleus, you have the chromatids apart from each other. They're no longer forming a bivalent, and then you have, you can either call this interkinesis or cytokinesis 1. So I'll just call it interkinesis here. You have your nucleus, and inside the nucleus, you have 2 copies of the DNA for the dad, 2 copies of the DNA for the mom. Okay, that's all of meiosis 1. Now, let's go down to meiosis 2. So I'm going to just continue this over here. Meiosis 2. Two haploid cells from the end of meiosis 1 divide again to form 4 haploid daughter cells that are unique. Okay, so let's redraw what we ended up with in meiosis 1. Okay. We're going to go through prophase 1, or excuse me, prophase 2. In prophase 2, the nucleus is condensing or decondensing, and then, excuse me, the nucleus is eroding away, and you're starting to see the chromatids again. In metaphase 2, oh, I've forgotten prophase 2, little subtle detail. Spindle fiber starting to assemble. In metaphase 2, the chromatids are aligned along the metaphase plate. anaphase 2. They're pulled apart, the chromatids are pulled apart into chromosomes into opposite ends of the cell. They're being pulled by the spindle fiber. And then in telophase 2, the nucleus is beginning to reform. And each nucleus is going to have half the DNA of what you started with. Remember that when we started, we have 4 chromosomes in the cell. How many chromosomes are there in each cell now? It's going to be 2. So if a fruit fly's diploid number is 4, its haploid number is going to be 2. Or excuse me, yeah, I said that right. Haploid is going to be 2. Okay, and that's going to be cytokinesis 2. Or just cytokinesis. All right, so there it is. Pause this video if you need to compare what is happening in meiosis 1 versus meiosis 2. So you can see, if you look right back here at the beginning, you started off with 4 chromosomes in that parent cell, and at the end of it all, we have 4 daughter cells that each have 2. Now, let me ask you guys, which phase of meiosis looks more like mitosis? That's going to be an important question. Might ask you that on a test. And why? Which phase of meiosis is more like mitosis? Is it meiosis 1 or is it meiosis 2? Give me a second to think about that. If you said meiosis 2, you are correct. Meiosis 2 is more like mitosis than meiosis 1 is. Okay? So let's keep going. And I want to talk next about genetic variation. Because there's some details I didn't mention yet. Genetic variation is why you and your sibling or siblings have the same mother, you have the same father, but you two look different. You know, there's some of you who I've had your brothers and I've had your sisters, and I can definitely see some similarities between you and your siblings. No doubt about it. You definitely look like each other, or you both look like your mom, or you both look like your dad. Anyone can see that. But you definitely have your differences too. So what's up with that? That's what I want to talk about next. Meiosis ensures genetic variation. You really would not see this in asexually reproducing organisms. All right, now, we all know about mutation. Mutation is why we have different eye colors. why that even is in the gene pool. It's why we have lighter toned skin. You should know that all humans originated from Africa. And common traits of humans in Africa are dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin, dark features. But not all humans like that are like that today. That's because humans have evolved. And there's reasons and factors, environmental factors, that drive that evolution, which we will talk about in this class. But the point is, a lot of that is just random mutation. And mutations do happen and they do cause variation. But it's a very, 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 very slow process. Mutations are very slow. There's things that meiosis does that happens within a generation between your parents and you. And so I want to talk about those. These are very rapid ways in which meiosis enhances variation from generation to generation. One is called crossing over. And two is called independent assortment. Okay, let's talk about crossing over first. This happens, it occurs during prophase 1. Prophase 1, yeah, it happens during prophase 1. Just had to double check my brain there. Here's what happens. Homologous chromosome pairs exchange genetic information there's typically 2 to 3 crossovers per pair. And for humans, that'd be 2 per pair over 46 pairs. So let me show you what this looks like. Remember this? Chromosome 1 from dad, chromosome 1 from mom, and then they're going to double themselves. So this is just, this is interphase. And then you go into S phase of interphase, and they're going to double themselves. That's nothing new. Here's what is new. All right, watch this. During prophase 1, they're going to exchange information. So I'm going to try to draw this as best as I can. The chromosome from dad is going to have some of mom's parts to it, or the paternal chromosome is going to have some of the maternal genes on them, and vice versa. Some of the chromosomes from the father are going to be on the maternal chromosome. This is known as crossing over. And so this enhances genetic variation. So what you're eventually going to have, when it's all said and done, is you're going to have all these various cells, these daughter cells that will be formed. And let's say that this one daughter cell will have a lot of father's chromosome with some of the maternal chromosome on there. You got a paternal chromosome with some of the maternal chromosome here. You've got a maternal chromosome with some of the paternal gene there. And you have some of the maternal chromosome, or most of the maternal chromosome with the paternal chromosome there. All these chromosomes are now different. These are going to result in 4 genetically unique daughter cells. This enhances variation, which is why you might have dad's eye shape, but mom's eye color. You might have dad's straight hair, but mom's hair color. You might have dad's mouth, but mom's teeth. You know, these things are, this is what enhances genetic variation. This happens every time meiosis occurs in a sexually reproducing organism. And it happens during prophase 1. I did not draw that earlier because I didn't want to overwhelm you at the point. I can only get to one thing at a time. But that's crossing over, where you have homologous non-sister chromosomes exchanging information with each other. They're exchanging their genetic info. It's basically like if I gave you my sock and my shoe, but I keep my other sock and shoe. And so I'm mostly me, I'm mostly Mr. Thorson, but I'm wearing one of my students' sock and shoe. So I'm mostly me, but I have a little bit of the other. That's how it goes when we're inheriting our parents' chromosomes. Like you might inherit a chromosome that's 80% your father, but 20% your mother, or vice versa. And that's why we get traits from both parents. The other factor that enhances genetic variation is called independent assortment. This basically means that homologous chromosomes separate independently or randomly. No gene is dependent on another. Let me ask you guys this. Have you ever seen a brunette with brown eyes? Yes, of course. Some of you watching this video are brunettes with brown eyes. Have you ever seen a brunette with blue eyes? Yeah, I'm a brunette with blue eyes. The point I'm making here is just because you have brown hair does not automatically mean that you have to have brown eyes. You can have brown hair and you can have brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, hazel eyes, so on and so forth. The fact that you have a big nose has nothing to do with the fact that you are allergic to bee stings. Every trait that we have is independent of any other trait. The fact that Michael might be colorblind has nothing to do with the fact that he has a peanut allergy. The two traits are completely independent of each other. No gene is dependent on another. Every gene is independent. And so I remember I had a student a few years ago. She said, Mr. Thorson, how come African Americans always have brown eyes? She was African American. She was a genuine question. She wanted to know, how come African Americans always have brown eyes? I said, do they always have brown eyes? Well, she said, how come it's most common? I said, okay. Let's answer one thing at a time. I can't speak for what you guys have seen, but I've certainly seen African Americans with blue eyes before. I've seen it. It happens. It could be a mutation or it could be a trait that runs in the family. Just because you were African American does not mean you have to have brown eyes. But then she said, okay, well, how come it's very, very common in the African American society or in that race? So, well, it's called a gene pool. And we're going to talk about gene pools later. A gene pool is all the genetics that are found within a family or found within a population. I always like to think that like South Tampa has an amazing gene pool. We have a big water tower over the high school that says Plant High School, home of state champions. Because Plant High School, it has incredibly athletic and accomplished and intelligent students. I say, South Tampa is a pretty great gene pool. for lots of different things. If you want to go into music, if you want to go into sports, you want to go into academics, anything. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. But you can't have a trait that's not in your gene pool. You can't have it if it's not there. I did not drive my dinosaur to Plant High School yesterday. You know why? Because I don't have a dinosaur. You can't have what isn't there. I don't have a rocket ship on my roof to get me to work. So I can't ride a rocket ship to work. I hope you understand that. To answer her question, how come you very seldom see blue eyes, is because blue eyes is not in the gene pool. I can tell you in my family, brown eyes is not in our gene pool. It's not going to be in mine unless I end up with someone that has brown eyes, because my mother has blue eyes. My father has green eyes. I have blue eyes. My sister has green eyes. Brown eyes is not in the Thorson gene pool. It's not there. And so when it comes to the African American gene pool, with a lot of families, the reason why there are no people with blue eyes is just blue eyes isn't there. Also in my family, blonde hair isn't there, I think. My mom might have been blonde. I don't know. I don't think so. I think she was brown. But you can't have what's not there. I hope that makes sense to you all. So to answer that student's question from years ago, how come, to recap that, she said, how come most African Americans have brown eyes? It's because, well, first, in humans, brown eyes is a dominant trait. She said, and then she goes, okay, well, how come I don't see African Americans with blue eyes? So there are African Americans with blue eyes. It's just rare because it's a rare trait to have in that gene pool. And if it's not in your gene pool, you can't have it. Okay? All right, we are going to stop there. I think that's enough for today. And we will pick this up tomorrow, Friday, November 13th, with phases of meiosis, which I've already recapped, so that one should be pretty quick. And then we're going to compare meiosis to mitosis. Okay? Talk to you guys tomorrow.